All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about something huge happening in the medical device world, probably one of the biggest regulatory shakeups we've seen in decades. We're breaking down the big switch from what's known as the QSR to the brand new QMSR.
So let's just cut to the chase with the one question that really matters right now. Is your company ready for 2026? I ask because there's a massive deadline on the horizon, and believe me, the clock is ticking. I mean, think about it. For the first time in over 2 decades, the FDA is completely overhauling its quality system rules. The regulation we've all lived and breathed, the QSR, 21 CFR Part 820, is on its way out. It's being replaced by something entirely new, the Quality Management System Regulation, or QMSR for short. And yeah, this is a huge deal.
Okay, so let's look at the calendar. The final rule actually dropped back in February 2024. What does that mean? It means we are already in the middle of this 2-year transition window. The day of reckoning, the hard deadline when this thing goes live, is February 2nd, 2026. You're going to want to circle that date, maybe in bright red marker.
So this really is a new era for quality. But what does that actually mean? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what's fundamentally changing. At its heart, the new QMSR is what you'd call a hybrid model. It's like the FDA is taking 2 different playbooks and merging them into one. They're blending internationally recognized standards right into U.S. law, which is a pretty new way of doing things. And here's the core of it all. The QMSR is the FDA's new framework that officially incorporates the global standard ISO 1348-2016. Now, it does this using a legal term called incorporation by reference. That phrase is super important. It basically means the FDA is saying, see that entire ISO standard? Yeah, that's now part of our rules. It's not just a suggestion or a best practice anymore. It's binding. It's the law.
This slide really paints the picture, right? Before we had the QSR, it was its own thing, totally US-specific, pretty prescriptive. It was the FDA's world, and we were just living in it. But now we have the QMSR. It's this hybrid that uses the global ISO 1345 standard as its base, but, and this is key, it still keeps some very specific FDA requirements sprinkled on top.
So you might be asking, why go through all this trouble? Well, the FDA has 2 big goals here. First, it's about getting in sync, harmonizing US rules with the global best practices that, honestly, most of the world is already using. The second goal is to try and make life a little easier for manufacturers. If you're selling devices in the US and overseas, the dream is to have just one quality system to manage. That's really the holy grail here. Okay, let's clear up some common misconceptions right away, because it's really important to know what the QMSR is not. First off, it's not a total wipeout of all FDA rules. They're definitely keeping some of their key requirements. And here's the one I really want you to hear. Having an MDSAP audit or a shiny ISO 1345 certificate on your wall does not mean you get a free pass on FDA inspections. Nope, those are still happening. They'll just be different. This leads us to what is probably the single biggest shift in thinking with this new regulation. Seriously, if you take one thing away today, let it be this. Risk is now the name of the game. It's not just a process, it's a whole new mindset you need for compliance. And this quote just nails it. The new rule makes risk a pervasive, cross-cutting principle. So what does that mean? It means risk isn't just some box you check off during design anymore. It has to be the thread that you weave through the entire fabric of your quality system. And here's what that looks like in the real world. You have to actively build risk-based thinking into everything. We're talking design controls, of course, but also supplier management, your production controls, how you handle CAPAs, even the way your top brass conducts management reviews. It has to be everywhere. All right, so we've talked about the what and the why. Now let's get down to business, the part you've been waiting for. What does this actually mean for you, and what should you be doing like yesterday? Let's build your game plan. First up, there's a huge change coming to inspections. That old playbook, the one everyone has studied for years, the QSIT, or Quality System Inspection Technique, well, you can pretty much toss it out. It's being retired. The FDA is building a whole new inspection process from the ground up to match the QMSR. The old way of prepping for an audit? It's not going to cut it anymore. So what does this actually mean for your day-to-day operations? 2 big things. First, inspections are going to feel different. They'll be less about ticking boxes on procedures and more about looking at how effective your whole system really is. And second, and folks, this one is massive, the FDA gets to look at more stuff. Records that used to be off limits, they are now totally fair game. And which records are we talking about? Specifically, these two big ones: your internal management review records and your supplier audit reports. For the very first time, an FDI inspector can say, "Show them to me." This is a game changer for transparency. It means those high-level meetings and supplier audits are about to be put under a very, very powerful microscope.
Okay, so you're probably thinking, where on earth do I even start? Don't worry, here's a simple 4-step action plan. Step 1, do a gap analysis, a deep dive comparing where you are to where the QMSR says you need to be. Step 2, update your documents. Every procedure, every work instruction needs to be updated to reflect this new rule and that risk-based mindset. Step 3, rework your internal audits. They need to be driven by risk, not just by the calendar. And finally, Step 4, beef up your risk management. Make it a formal, integrated part of absolutely everything you do.
All right, let's bring it all home and talk about that deadline one more time and what the path forward looks like.
Let's put this date front and center again, February 2nd, 2026. Look, I know it might sound like it's far away, but for a project this big, that's right around the corner. The time to get moving is, without a doubt, right now.
So, if you're walking away from this, what are the big headlines to remember? First, the QMSR is a hybrid. It's ISO 13485 plus some key FDA rules. Second, risk isn't just a task, it's a system-wide philosophy. Third, remember those management review and supplier audit records? They're now open for inspection. And finally, number 4, your homework starts with a gap analysis. That is step 1, no question.
And that leaves us with one final thought. It's so easy to look at this and just see another mountain of paperwork, another compliance hurdle to jump over. But what if it's more than that? What if this is a genuine opportunity to stop just checking the box and start building a truly world-class quality system that works anywhere on the globe? How you answer that question will really define your company's future in this new era. Thanks for tuning in.